What is up, everybody? Coach Juma here, and today we're going to be breaking down fitness and nutrition in the month of Ramadan. For those of you unaware, Ramadan is a holy month for Muslims where over 1 billion Muslims, for the entire month, they fast from sunup to sundown, not having any water, any food, any drinks, gum, or anything of that nature. The purpose of it is to practice self-discipline and self-sacrifice, strengthening your spiritual and physical connection with your body, and empathizing with those less fortunate than us. But that's just the religious component of it. There's also a very large cultural component to it as well. It's incredibly festive with huge hosted dinner parties for dozens of people to eat at, exclusive foods and desserts that are only made during the month of Ramadan, and other fun traditions that families love to take part in. So there's obviously a lot going on in the month, and it gets people wondering, how can they possibly balance all of these happenings while trying to continue to pursue their fitness and nutrition goals? There's some YouTube content out there about how to build muscle during Ramadan, but there isn't much on how to lose weight, how to be healthy, and how to enjoy all those different foods and desserts without it setting you back. So in this video, we're going to be breaking down the biggest mistakes people make when approaching Ramadan from a fitness and nutrition perspective, how to set the right goals, the best training practices, and some key nutritional guidelines for you to follow as well. You would think with all the fasting that we do that most people will lose weight during Ramadan, but it's actually the opposite. Because of how people view the month and how it relates to their fitness goals, most people regularly gain at least 5 to 15 pounds in Ramadan.
We interrupt this video to let you know of an exclusive and awesome opportunity that StupidFit is hosting right now.
Going into 2023 Ramadan. This is going to be the second annual fasting fitness challenge that we will be hosting. This challenge is here to help you make the most out of Ramadan by helping you adjust your fitness goals to the right level so that you don't lose any of the progress that you gained and continue to make progress during the month of Ramadan. The cool thing is it doesn't come with sacrifice. You're still going to be able to have kanafa, qtayif, and all your favorite Ramadan foods on this program. You'll get 30 days of workouts, nutrition guidelines, grocery list, weekly Q&As, and more. And all of this is housed in the exclusive Stupid Fit Fam community, and you can get it for less than $1 a day. So join now for the Ramadan challenge. The link is in the description below. And now back to the video. Now, getting into talking about the biggest mistakes that most people make in Ramadan. Too many people that I've worked with or talked to over the years are interested in losing weight, but whenever Ramadan comes around, they want to take a full break from it. They step away from training entirely. They step away from trying to eat healthy entirely. They step away from worrying about their calorie intake or the decisions they're making, which is literally, without exaggeration, the worst decision and mindset you can have when approaching this month for a few reasons. For one, when you take a break for an entire 30-day period and you create all this negative momentum, doing habits different than the person you want to become against the goals that you have, you set yourself back so much further than you would have if you just became a little bit more mindful. I've seen people try to do this approach and it never works out the way they want it to. They intend to take a break for just the month of Ramadan, but they end up struggling to make it back into the gym or getting back in their nutrition habits months after Ramadan has even passed. So a 1-month break ends up being a 6-month break, and they get back onto the swing of things for another few months before Ramadan comes again, and they inevitably repeat this cycle. I personally know dozens of people who have gone through this. Now, I'm not saying you need to do everything that you used to be doing pre-Ramadan in Ramadan, but letting go of everything entirely and taking a break, putting it on pause, is definitely the worst thing you can do from a consistency perspective and from creating momentum. But not only that, it's also spiritually irresponsible to do so. You have a duty as a Muslim to take care of your body, to optimize your health, so you can better accomplish your spiritual endeavors. Your physical health and your spiritual development aren't separate things. They work together hand in hand. And any sheikh will confirm and tell you that as well. You have a duty to take care of your body. Willfully neglecting it, especially during the holiest month, is irresponsible. So we know the biggest mistake here is not approaching it properly. But the second biggest mistake is going to be trying to do too much in the month of Ramadan. Again, it's a busy month. There's a lot going on. You're fasting. There's a lot of events for you to attend to. You have spiritual and religious obligations that you want to fulfill. On top of all that, you want to do all of the workouts that you used to do beforehand. Trying to do all of that, biting more than you can chew, is a recipe for disappointment in the month of Ramadan. So before the month starts, you want to be able to set the right intentions with yourself and be honest with what is going to be most important to you in this month. It's okay to slow down with your training, shifting from a muscle building or a fat loss phase into a maintenance phase, but do so intentionally. If you want to put extra emphasis on reading more Quran, doing your prayers, attending halaqas or religious classes, and you really want to emphasize that first and foremost, just shift your approach so that your plate isn't overfilled. And And that means reducing your training intensity so that you can maintain your muscle and not push too hard in fat loss or push too hard with muscle building. This is you taking care of your health, not ignoring it, not neglecting it, still making it a priority, but just shuffling things around because it's not your number one priority at this point in time. And that's okay. You just have to be honest with what priorities you want in this month. There are no right or wrong answers. It's really you being honest with yourself, knowing what you want, what you're looking for, and then setting up a plan to make that happen as the month goes forward. Over these next 2 weeks before Ramadan starts, I encourage you to really think about and ask yourself what you want, what you're going to accomplish, what you're looking to achieve and reach in this month, and then setting up a plan to make that happen. So now that we know how to set the right intentions and set the right goals for the month of Ramadan, what does optimal training look like during the month of Ramadan? So there's a number of ways to approach this. The first is going to be goal specific. If you're going to be gaining muscle or losing weight, prioritizing resistance training is still going to be really important during the month of Ramadan. How you go about resistance training though will depend on when you plan on working out during the month. Ideally, you want to work out after iftar, after you break your fast, or just after you start your fast, right after suhoor. These times are optimal because you're going to be the most hydrated at this time, which reduces your risk of injury, and you're going to be fed as well, which will increase your performance during your training session and help you get the most out of it. If you train at these 2 times, you don't really have to adjust anything with your training program, just continue following it as planned. However, if you're going to be training right before iftar, later in the day, after having fasted for 10 plus hours, you're going to be really dehydrated at this point, which is a recipe, pun again, which is a recipe for injury at that point in time. So in order to minimize your injury risk, it's best to reduce the intensity of your lifts and reduce the volume of the lifts you're doing as well. Instead of lifting with an RPE of 10 where you're pushing as much weight as you can, lift with an RPE of 7 where you lower the weight a little bit, you still go through the full range of motion, you feel your muscles stretch and contract the way you want them to, but you're not pushing yourself to that same intensity you would lifting the really heavy weights for the sets and reps you want. This reduces your risk of injury, ensures that you're still challenging your muscles, and gets you moving and burning calories the way you want to. You can also reduce volume, which means doing a few less sets or a couple fewer exercises during your entire training program. You can choose one or the other. I personally like reducing intensity because I like having a full workout, and this helps me really dial in my form. You could do both, but it's not necessary. We're already reducing how much training you're doing. There's no reason to reduce it even further. You still want to do a good amount of something. So depending on your personality, training preference, how you like to work out, you choose which one is going to be more beneficial for you. If you find yourself super stuck on time every now and then, you could reduce both to still get a quick workout in without it being a detriment to your schedule. Now, in terms of cardio, if you are going to be doing cardio during the month, the one thing I highly recommend everyone should be keeping track of during the month of Ramadan is your NEAT activity, how many steps you're taking throughout the day. When you are fasting, you're obviously not taking in any calories. Your body wants to conserve energy because it knows there's no food coming in. As a result, it is subconsciously moving less throughout the day. That means instead of standing when you would normally stand, you might lean on something, looking for reasons not to move as much. You're going to be looking for reasons to be sitting down. Again, this is a subconscious thing your brain is doing in order to conserve energy. So if your goal is going to be fat loss during the month of Ramadan or maintaining health, definitely be sure to keep track of your steps during the month of Ramadan, hitting anywhere between 6,000 to 12,000 steps per day, and just trying your best to stay active, because this will also give you energy throughout the day so that you're not feeling drained as well. This reduction in NEAT activity is also a big reason why most people gain weight during Ramadan. Even though you're eating a lot less, in theory, you have less time to eat. You're moving so much less throughout the day just because of fatigue, being tired, of fasting. So being mindful of this can help you continue to maintain where you're at or continue to progress with your fat loss if that is your goal. Now, other forms of cardio that you might be pursuing during the month of Ramadan, I wouldn't recommend HIIT training before iftar, for the same exact reason why I would recommend reducing intensity and reducing volume if you weight train before iftar. There's just an increased risk of injury and there's no reason to put yourself in that position. The only time I would recommend it is post iftar, just because having it after suhoor is going to really drain you for the rest of the day compared to resistance training, which will actually give you a little bit more energy to start off the first half of the day. But LIS and MIS cardio, low intensity steady state and moderate intensity steady state cardio, where you get your heart rate pumping up a little bit, is good to do do at any time of day. It's low impact, low injury risk, and a good easy way to burn some calories. If you don't want to resistance train, don't feel like resistance training some days, and just want to get moving, this is going to be your go-to cardio movement. Regardless of your goal, highly recommend you keep track of your step count. If you plan on doing cardio, try to do less or miss cardio anytime during the day. If you want to do HIIT cardio, only do that after iftar. And if you want to resistance train without restriction, also do that after iftar or right after suhoor. If you're going to do it anytime in the day when you're fasting, especially pre-iftar, reduce the intensity, reduce the volume so that you aren't putting yourself in a position where you get injured and regret this decision altogether. Now, getting into nutrition, this is where things get interesting. Your eating window is pretty small, especially if you're going to be working full-time while in the month of Ramadan. You're probably going to be sleeping earlier than most young people that have the luxury of being able to stay up throughout the entire night. This means the time that you eat is compressed even further, and it makes it harder to get the nutrients you need on time. I'm going to break this down in two ways. One for the person that is going to be tracking their food intake during Ramadan, and one for the person that is going to be eating mindfully during Ramadan and not tracking their intake. If you're going to be tracking during Ramadan, I would suggest reducing your calorie intake by about 15% compared to what you're having right now. The reason being is because your eating window is going to be restricted. You are going to be moving less throughout the day, so you're going to be burning fewer calories throughout the day. So this is just a safe compensation to have so that you are still sticking with your goals appropriately. And that applies both for fat loss or maintenance or muscle building. Because you have that reduction in movement, you do want to compensate for that. You don't have to overcompensate. 10% is just fine. The same is going to be true for your protein intake. Ideally, if your goal is fat loss, you want to have 1 to 1.2 grams of protein per pound of lean body mass. So if your goal weight is 120, you want to be between 120 and 130 grams of protein per day. Now, getting that much protein in a 5-hour span is going to be really, really difficult. So it's helpful to go on the lower end of your protein goal, which is going to be 0.8 grams to 1.0 grams per pound of body weight. So once again, if your goal weight is 120, the minimum you would need to intake is 95 grams of protein. This way, you're still meeting your body's needs to have protein, to maintain muscle, to recover from training, to precursor the hormones that are going to be produced from protein and maintain a healthy physique, while also giving you that flexibility to have other foods that are going to be present during Ramadan. So pretty straightforward adjustments. You're reducing your protein intake to the lower end of the ideal range. You're reducing your calorie intake to make up for the decreased movement. You should be continuing to see progress in your goals accordingly just by making those minor adjustments. If you're somebody that wants to maintain weight and eat mindfully or just not track throughout the month, how you approach each meal and how you set up your plates per meal is going to be your go-to way of managing your calorie intake. To start things off, especially through the first week of Ramadan, you want to be mindful that you're really hungry going into that first iftar meal. You're going to want to load up your plate, but that's going to be way more food than your body actually needs at that point in time. We don't want to eat with our eyes. We want to eat with intention. The most important thing is going to be drinking water first and foremost, having a full glass of water. Obviously, this is sunnah, but like I mentioned earlier in the training aspect of this, you get dehydrated pretty fast throughout the day. So rehydrating immediately is going to help facilitate fat loss, reduce your appetite so you don't overeat at any meal, and help you just recover overall and function optimally. The next thing you want to do is set up your plate in a way where you get fast digesting carbs and fast digesting proteins. So faster digesting carbs are going to be things like fruits, dates, white rices and breads, etc., etc. This is going to help you absorb a lot of calories sooner and get in those micronutrients that you were lacking throughout the day. Fast digesting proteins are going to be things like whey protein, white meats, and most dairy products. If you have physique goals that you are trying to do, you want to still build muscle, you want to lose fat and maintain muscle, having fast digesting proteins and carbs first thing is going to be the most optimal thing for you. If that's not something you could do each and every single day, that is fine, but try to prioritize that whenever you can. Now, on that same note, before moving forward with setting up your plate, at suhoor, right before you start your fast, you want to have slow digesting foods. This will help ensure that you have sustained energy throughout most of the day as the food slowly breaks down in your digestive tract. What that looks like is for carbs, having whole grain foods, supplements like highly branched cyclic dextrin, and brown rices, fibers, and vegetables will make up the slow digesting carbs that you're going to be eating at suhoor. As far as protein goes, casein is going to be the slowest digesting protein that there is, which you can get as a powdered supplement or from yogurts, cheeses, and other dairy products. Now, when it comes to setting up your plate and putting yourself in a position where you want to enjoy the foods that are present, but not overeat, overindulge, or set yourself further away from your goals, you want to incorporate good mindful eating practices. What that looks like is setting up your plate and having one plate of a little bit of everything that you kind of want. You have a third of your plate come from protein, a third come from some sort of color source, whether that's fruits, vegetables, etc., something that's not brown, white, and gray. Last third of your plate to be made up of whatever favorite food that you have on the table. That could be a couple things, but whatever you can fit on there. When I say thirds of your plate, it doesn't mean piling up the plate as high as you can. Just have a modest amount to start. Again, you're going to be really hungry, so you're going to want to eat with your eyes, but you need to slow yourself down and pace yourself. You're going to have more opportunity to eat as it goes on, but make sure the first plate covers your basic grounds. You have your protein, you have your colors, and you have foods that you like and enjoy. In this time, sit and enjoy the food that you're eating. Take your time chewing the food and actually tasting what is in your mouth. Slowing down will help make a 1-plate meal feel like a 5-plate meal. You don't need to eat more to enjoy the food more. Once you finish up your first plate, have another glass of water to get rehydrated again, and give yourself a couple seconds to really see how you're feeling. Are you feeling full? Are you feeling content? Or can you eat and have another plate? In this first week, your body is going to be changing a lot, and your appetite signaling is going to be changing a lot as well. So you might not be able to eat as much in one sitting as you used to. Give yourself the grace to listen to your body. If you're feeling full and content at that point in time, then no reason to add a second plate. You could always eat more later in the evening. And at that point later in the evening, I would recommend trying to replicate the same kind of idea. Having a protein, having some color, and having your favorite foods. This is how you can enjoy desserts. This is how you can enjoy specific dishes or drinks without it being a hindrance to your weight loss or weight maintenance goals during the month of Ramadan. Here's a stupid simple summary to help recap things. Don't ditch fitness and nutrition goals during the month of Ramadan. Instead, adjust them to better fit what you are doing. If you need to reduce your training, stop tracking your food for a little bit, or adjust how you move, that's fine. Don't give up on it entirely. Find what's going to work with you for this month. For training, if you're going to be resistance training, it's best to do it post iftar or right after suhoor. If you're going to be doing it before iftar, reduce the intensity and volume of your training. If you're going to be doing cardio, list and miss cardio is the way to go at any time in the day. HIIT cardio can only be done after iftar. Nutritionally, if you're going to be tracking your food, reduce your calorie goal by 10% just to make up for the reduction of activity that is bound to happen during the month of Ramadan. And also aim for the lower end of your protein marks. 0.8 to 1.0 gram of protein per pound of body weight is going to be that mark. If you really want to optimize your recovery and your development during the month of Ramadan, have fast digesting carbs and proteins at iftar as soon as you break your fast, and slower digesting proteins and carbs right before you start your fast at suhoor. Always have a big glass of water to start off, and have another big glass of water after your first plate to rehydrate yourself and pace yourself so you're not overeating. And remember to eat mindfully and enjoy the food in front of you. Mindfulness and intention are key themes in the month of Ramadan, regardless of food. Practice that in the way that you're eating, setting up your plate and enjoying your food. Most importantly of all, make sure to continue to walk, continue to move, and get your steps in. This is always the first thing to go when you don't eat for a long period of time. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out or comment down below. I'm happy to give you the information you need. And here's to a very blessed and wonderful Ramadan for everyone around. Ramadan Mubarak.